art in heaven, hallowed be your kingdom come, will be done. Today our daily bread, forgive us our debts, not into temptation, kingdom, power, glory forever. Well, we're going to be in Exodus chapter 20 today. Exodus chapter 20, and that means that we're back in the Ten Commandments. Today, officially in the church calendar, is Epiphany Sunday. Epiphany is when we celebrate the coming and the revelation of the gospel to the Gentiles. So Epiphany is when we see the three wise men come and give their gifts. And where do they come from? They're not Jewish. They're from away, as Mainers like to say. And so here we are, still from away. We're not from Jerusalem. We're not from Israel. And the light of the gospel has come to us. And so the Epiphany is quite literally the revelation of the light of the gospel has come to us. And that's the celebration in our minds. So when you think about you might say like, wait, why isn't Christmas over? Shouldn't we take these things down? It's actually still Christmas time in terms of the church calendar, that the light is now coming to the Gentiles. So I'm not going to preach on that today. I'm just letting you know that that's the symbolism. Next week we'll take the stuff down. Okay. So we are going back though to the Ten Commandments. We've already gone through the first 4. Now we're going to deal with the last 6 in the next 6 weeks. We're in Exodus chapter 20, and today we're going to look at commandment number 5, which is really from verse 12. Exodus chapter 20. Verse 12 says this: honor your father and your mother, that your days may be prolonged in the land which the Lord your God gives you. So again, we looked at the first 4 commandments. Those have everything to do with how do I love God, first 4. Now we're moving to what some people call as the second table of the commandments, and we're looking at how do I love other people. Well, how do I love other people? In the 5th commandment is how do I love other people who are in authority over me? And in many ways, it's not that hard to understand, right? We are to honor our parents. We are to treat them, what they say, what they want, with weight. We don't disregard them, and in general, we obey. Now, this goes not just for physical parents, but also for spiritual parents and even governmental parents. It includes church leaders like pastors and elders. It also includes civil leaders like the police, governor, the president. This is how the Bible describes all society. It's like we're a big family. This is how one writer describes it. Frequently in the scripture, we find different groups of individuals referred to as if they were parents. Take, for example, Joseph's relationship to the ruler of Egypt. He said to his brothers, God has made me a father to Pharaoh. Or think, if you will, of Deborah, who said, with reference to the tribes of Israel, which he had led to victory, I arose a mother in Israel. Or think of Elisha, who said of the old prophet Elijah when he was taken up into a whirlwind into heaven, my father, my father. Elders who have positions of responsibility are looked up to as though they are parents. So I would encourage you to think of society like this, kind of concentric circles, kind of going out, right? And in the center of the circle is the biological family, and outside that, the spiritual family of the church, outside that, the state or national family. So when it comes to honoring your mother and your father, what I mean is do not stop just at your physical parents. Don't skip your parents, but also don't stop there. Start in the inner circle, and then kind of work your way out. Okay, so what that means, kids, very practically, is this. Start by obeying your mom when she tells you to go to bed. Listen to your dad when he tells you to mow the lawn or shovel the steps. Do not argue and do not whine and do not roll your eyes. Say yes, sir, yes, ma'am, or whatever it is you say these days that indicates respect. And then do that with your teachers, and do that with your coaches, and then take the same attitude and apply that to the police and to the president. Do not wear a Let's Go Brandon hat even if someone gives you one. I mean that. Parents, teach your kids to do that. That is, do not be afraid to take authority, the authority that God has given you. Clean your room because I said so is not an illegitimate thing to say. Don't be cruel, don't be unreasonable, but at the same time, don't let yourself be bullied by a culture that tells you that there's no such thing as authority, that the only reason you get to tell your kids what to do is because either you pay for everything or because you're bigger than them. It's just not true. Authority is not the same thing as force. Authority is not the same thing as force. My mother is smaller than I am. I owe her honor. One day I expect my boys will be bigger and stronger than me. They're not here, so I can say they almost are now. And when they are, they will still owe me a kind of honor. So again, on the face of it, that's not that hard to understand, right? It's not that complicated. It's not like we don't obey this because I didn't understand. It's because it's not that hard to understand to honor your mother and your father and all the authorities over you. It's not hard to get. What it's hard to do is do. And that's hard for kids. And by the way, kids, it's hard for adults. And part of this is just, plain and simple sin. Right? I don't want to submit. I want to do what I want to do. I do not want anyone to tell me what to do. But that's not the only reason why this commandment is hard. Sometimes we really do want to honor our mother and our fathers, and we don't know how. For instance, what does honor look like to a man who needs to protect his kids from his own abuse? What does honor look like to a woman whose mom is so interfering and controlling that her own marriage is on the rocks? How about the teenager who has honestly been bullied by the police or treated really cruelly by a coach? How about the soldier who's been given an order that he knows is more wrong? Well, in such cases, obeying the fifth commandment is not simple. It's complicated. We may want to honor authority, but at the same time, we do not want to, and we really can't, either do or enable evil. Also, some of us find ourselves in positions of authority, and we're not really sure we're up for it. That is, we've never really seen a great example of authority kind of up close. Our parents were not around, or they were around and that was worse. Some of us, we've grown up with bosses, and some we've been able to say, wow, like, what a helpful mentor to me. But a lot of times we say, man, that guy let that power go right to his head. We know good authority exists. We believe in it, but it's sort of like believing in dinosaurs, right? They're real, but I've never met one. And so there we are, here we are. We're kind of like all grown up, and we're feeling, those of us in authority, insecure. It's like those adulting memes. Adulthood, the horrifying moment when you're looking for an adult. You realize that you're the adult. You look for an older adult, someone successfully adulting, an adultier adult. Or adulthood is like looking both ways before you cross the street and then getting hit by an airplane. I didn't know it was going to take you guys to respond here. Thank you for responding. I've got more, but I'm going to save them. It's how a lot of parents feel today. It's not just that we have had bad experiences, that we're afraid of giving someone else bad experiences. We don't want to be part of the problem. It's like we're so afraid of fumbling the ball that we never pick it up. For some of us, the issue goes a lot deeper. We have taken the abuses that we have seen and the insecurities that we feel, and this is the mood of the times right now, we feel kind of revolution. We say that the real problem is the very concept of authority, that the only answer to have, since so many authorities abuse their authority, the only answer is to get rid of it. So what we need is a more radical democracy, where everyone is just equal in just every single way. Now, for most of us, probably especially in this room, that's a pretty extreme position. Right? We're not ready to join Antifa or call ourselves anarchists. We don't really want to defund the police, and we don't want to get rid of government or teachers or parents. It's the old saying, right? The abuse of the thing does not negate the thing. But still, we have been affected by our culture, and ours really is a culture, especially right now. It's pushing for a kind of radical democracy. So we want everyone to be equal, just about every way, or else it feels unjust. That's the feeling in the air. And this is the way of the world. We see it everywhere. And so it's no surprise that we sometimes also see it in the church. And what that means is for most of us, in one way or another, we're afraid of authority, the authority that other people are going to push in on us, or the authority that we might have to have over. We don't say it this way, not to others and not to ourselves, but we feel it, right? It's more in our guts, in our intuition. Men are afraid to lead their family. Women are afraid to lead their kids. Men don't want to be called chauvinistic. Women don't want to be the subject of future counseling sessions. The end result for that is an awful lot of Christian homes these days is that nobody has the steering wheel. Men look to their wives look to their kids, and the kids say, why is nobody driving? So in a culture like ours, and a time like ours, I think we're really ripe to hear again the fifth commandment. Honor father and your mother, that your days may be prolonged, the land which the Lord your God gives. Notice that we are not told to honor our fathers and mothers only if they are perfect. That we are told to honor our fathers and our mothers, the ones that we have. And if we are the parents, and if we're the leaders, then what that means is you're not allowed, I'm not allowed, we are not allowed to renounce our authority even if we feel insecure. It's true we have weaknesses, it's true that we are imperfect, it's also true that we have a job to do, and if we do not do it, we will grow. The sins of our children will only grow. So how do we deal with all of this? Broken it open, the subject is complex, it's not easy, it's complicated. How do we deal with it all? How do we obey our father and our mother and all authorities, even when some of them and many of them are serious? So today from the Bible, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of launch off from the fifth commandment, and I'm going to show you a couple things, 3 principles. How do I submit to authority when my authority is flawed? Well, your honor should look like these 3 things. First, patience. Second, gratitude. Third, submission. Patience, gratitude, submission. That is patience with failure, gratitude for any good that you can, and then submission where you can. Look at the first point. Honor with flawed authorities begins with patience. Come with me now. We're going to flip quite a bit of ways. 1 Peter chapter 2. 1 Peter chapter 2. First Peter chapter 2, we're going to start in verse 18. Servants, be submissive to your masters with all respect, not only to those who are good and gentle, but also to those who are unreasonable. For this finds favor if, for the sake of conscience towards God, a person bears up under sorrows when suffering unjustly. For what credit is there? You sin and are harshly treated. You endure it with patience. But if when you do what is right and suffer for it, you patiently endure it, this finds favor with God. For you have been called to this purpose, since Christ also suffered for you, leaving you an example for you to follow in his footsteps, who committed no sin, nor was any deceit found in his mouth. While being reviled, he did not revile in return. While suffering, he uttered no threats, but kept trusting himself to him who judges righteously. Well, the thing to note here in this passage from 1 Peter is that this is not just a misunderstanding. That is, it's not just a breakdown of communication. The authority here is bad. Peter describes it as unreasonable, and the word is sometimes translated as perverse or crooked. So the point is, this guy's a real jerk, and he's your boss. He's a real loser, and he's in charge. Right? The failure is real. And so is the authority. In other words, the failure does not take away the authority. The failure does not take away the authority. So Peter makes a real point of it, right? He says, do not just submit to the good and the gentle, but also to the unreasonable, to the perverse and to the crooked. And if you have grown up in a home that is unreasonable, or you've worked in a job that is unreasonable, or you've had to deal with state workers who are unreasonable, you know this is frustrating. It's a call to patient suffering, is it not? And to be patient with suffering is downright un-American, right? Of course, and that's really the point. If you stand there and you're patient with authorities when they fail, when you stand in a crowd and everyone else is singing, "We're not gonna take it," and you're singing Amazing Grace, you will be weird. You will look strange, and you will look strange because you will look like Jesus. What does it say? Who committed no sin, nor was any deceit found in his mouth, and while being reviled, he did not revile in return. While suffering, he uttered no threats, but kept entrusting himself to him who judges right. That's what it looks like to look like Jesus. And so here's a couple of reasons for us to be patient when authorities fail. First, that's what Jesus did, and Jesus is your example, Peter says. And the other thing is there is a day coming when God will make it right. So we trust ourselves, like Jesus, to him who judges righteously. We leave room for the wrath of God. All right, so think about that in your situation. What are you dealing with right now? Are you dealing with unreasonable authorities in your life? We can break the circle open. It could be in your family. It could be at your work. It could be that you're dealing with government in some way. How are you dealing with it? You know, when other people get unreasonable, do you get unreasonable back? Or are you being patient? Well, if honor looks like patience, it also looks like gratitude. Come now, got to flip back a little bit, but to Philippians 4. Philippians 4, verse 8. Most of you will be familiar with this passage, but it's good to be reminded of it. Philippians 4, verse 8, very famously says this: "Finally, brethren, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is of good repute, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, dwell on these things." So, of course, this passage is a real challenge to us because it's telling us to go out there, to get out our magnifying glass, and to look for things that are good. To look for things that are good even when some of the things all around them are bad. Now, of course, that's not what most of us get paid to do, right? We get paid to go out there and find things that are bad, and some of us are awesome at this. We get paid to find problems and we fix them, and all of our training and all of our habits and all of our brain power is geared to be negative. Here's what's wrong with that. And again, some of it, this is our superpower. This is our spiritual gift, being negative. We're awesome at it. And what Paul tells us to do instead is reverse engines. Look for the good, any good. Look for it and then focus on it and keep focusing. Now, again, we could apply this to any area of our lives, but what are we talking about today but the area of authority? Our parents, our teachers, our governors. So here's the point. Stop being awesome at complaining. Instead, learn to be grateful. Paul says it really wonderfully. If there's anything worthy of praise, dwell on these things. This does not mean that we close our eyes to what's evil or bad. It's not like we're going around with like Pollyanna pretending that bad things aren't. What it means is that we open our eyes wider to also see the good that is actually. Growing up, my home was this really scary place to be. My parents fought all the time. My dad was a hard man to please. I can tell you today that there's not naturally a whole lot about him that I was sort of like, I'm just so thankful for that. And I can look back now and say, you know what? He taught me to work hard. Honestly grateful for that. Honestly. I can also think about the things that I can't remember but must have happened, right? For me, to even have lived, my mother must have held me, must have fed me, must have kept me warm. Like, we are 5 kids in the house, and both parents had to work kind of hard to provide for that, right? We had a roof, we had food. Okay, so how might you apply this to your life? Here's something that helps me, and I would recommend it to you, especially if you're really good at being negative. Start by making a list of the good things. Make a list of the good things of your parents, your boss, your government. For some of us, we need to say, look, I need to start with the negative. Okay, get rid of the negative, start with the negative, fine. Then go burn that one, and then make another one. Here's your positive list. Even if your boss is harsh, you can still be grateful that you have a job. And even if it's kind of hard to go to work, you can still be thankful that you have a chance to grow in grace and virtue. Think about that too. That it's not just, I get to make money, but also this hardship will give me a chance to grow up. Even if your government wastes money, I don't know if yours does, mine tends to, you can be grateful that you receive some of the benefits. Building roads, schools, military. You can also apply this, especially now I'm going to talk to the people who are in authority, whether parents or teachers or somebody here has to exercise authority at some point. Sometimes we lose heart about our leadership because we just don't take time to celebrate. All we see, some of us are just kind of geared like this. We see all of the 1,000 ways we fail our kids, all the ways that we're not doing enough for our employees, to see all the ways that this is so corrupt. Okay, what about the good that you're also doing? I'm not talking about bad leaders spinning the facts to defend themselves. We've all heard of the parents who are like, well, at least I didn't let you starve, right? We're not talking about bad parents learning to defend themselves. We're not talking about selfish leaders learning how to defend themselves. What we're talking about is, if you're a leader, you will also need to learn how to be encouraged. Don't focus so often, so much on the bad that you lose heart, but also think about, you have gifts and you have had a job to do. So many of you have done it. Thank you. Good work. We need you. Don't forget that. That matters. All right, so if honoring flawed authorities means patience, it also means gratitude, then the last point is that it also means mission. And this is really where it gets tricky. This is where we'd like to have big debates, because what if they tell you to do something wrong? Well, the basic answer is, well, if they tell you to do something wrong, don't do it. In that case, you're supposed to be like Daniel's 3 friends. Bow to the idol. I will not bow to the idol. Or Daniel, who's commanded that you are not allowed to pray to anyone but the king. Well, I'm going to pray to the throne. So it's true that there are times for Christian civil disobedience. If we've been commanded to do wrong, or if we've been forbidden to do right, we don't do it. Ours is the approach of the apostles. We obey God. But it's really important to remember why we disobey, right? It can't be because we have grown rebellious. And this is the danger. When we start thinking about civil disobedience, we like the idea that we can do it so much that we can begin to nurse kind of a rebellious heart. It cannot be that our attitude is like, look, no one's got the right to tell me what to do except God. Well, what does the 5th commandment say? It's just not true. If you want to obey God, you got to obey the other authorities over you. Why then do we get to disobey sometimes? The issue is that there are greater and lesser authorities, and the only way we get to disobey a lesser authority is that we're obeying the other. At no point may we be rebellious. We only say no to one in order to say yes to the other. All right, here's a picture of what this looks like in real life. So if you can just listen to the story. This is Daniel chapter 1. This is the famous story of Daniel refusing to eat the king's food. All these captives come. He says, I'm not going to defile myself with the king's food. This is Daniel chapter 1, verse 8. It's an interesting verse. Listen to what it says. But Daniel made up his mind that he would not defile himself with the king's choice food or with the wine which he drank. So he sought permission from the commander of the officials that he might not defile himself. Now, isn't that interesting? See what he does? He makes up his mind that he's not going to do it. Firm. At the same time, he's submissive and he's humble. He seeks permission from someone who's actually over him to do the thing he's actually resolved to do. You see, there's this connection here. We see the proper respect for human authority and at the same time an ultimate loyalty to God. A proper respect for authority and at the same time an ultimate loyalty to God. Okay, this should be our attitude too. If we have to say no to an abusive parent or an abusive church leader or an abusive government, we should never be proud or aggressive. We should be firm, but also humble and heartbroken. That is, our theme song is really never, we're not going to take. That's not our theme song. It's something like, oh, Lord, have mercy. All right, this kind of all boils down then to really, what is your view of human authority? How do you think about it? How do you relate to it? Is authority real? Is it important? Does it continue even if the authority is flawed? Or is authority just some kind of old social construct that needs to be torn down? That is, that may be how your parents did it, but I'm new school. You know, I only honor those people who deserve. And again, the topic is really important in our culture right now, right? We're having a crisis of authority. I don't know if you've... Many authorities have been revealed as seriously flawed, right? The founding fathers had slaves. Some police have been big. Our parents messed up. They messed us up even without realizing what they were doing. The church has had scandal after scandal. And so it might seem like the safest thing to do is just cut yourself from other authorities and just do your own thing. Here's a haunting question. What makes you think you can do it by yourself any better? I had to deal with this. Maybe you can do some things better than some. But are you seriously smarter, seriously more mature, seriously more virtuous than everybody else? If so, I do not want you in authority over me. What I'm talking about here then is the problem with the world is not just messed up authority, and the problem really is sin, and that really affects every part of all of us. And so it's not really that surprising that authorities mess up. Authorities are flawed. It's not like some great sign of intelligence that you notice. It's true that some authorities are bad. You know what also is true? Some authorities are awesome, and you still don't want to be told what to do. What I'm saying is that authority is unavoidable. It's built into the world. If you want to be a Christian, you need to think of the world like this. Authority is real, and it's built into the world. And the reason for that is that God has all authority, given some of it to others. We have a saying, power corrupts. What else do we say? Ultimate power corrupts absolutely, or absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's actually not a very Christian thing to say. Who has absolute power? God. Is he corrupt? No. It tends to be true with people. I understand that. But we need to think in terms of authority as being a good thing, and then we hold it like a kind of sacred trust. Act on it. Authority is built into the world. He's given some of this authority to parents and teachers and churches and governments. And this is not to oppress us, but to help us. And so notice that the fifth commandment does not end with a curse. It does not say, honor your father and mother so that they can oppress you every day of their life. It says, it ends with a blessing. Honor your father and your mother so that your days may be prolonged in the land which the Lord your God has given you. The Deuteronomy passage actually increases that, not just that you would have long life, but you would have prosperity. And so this verse is connected to Star Trek because you obey, honor, and your authorities. Why? So you can live long and prosper. Now again, there are exceptions to this. It's the rule. you want to live long, and if you want to prosper, if you want to be, kids, if you want to bless your parents, want to make them happy, honor them. Honor them. You want to be a blessing. If you want other people to say, oh, it's so good to be around, learn to love. Don't love rebellion, but love to learn to submit. Honor your mother and your father and all who are authority over you. Okay, I'm going to close with 3 things I'm going to ask you to think about. 3 things to think about. Number 1, are you rebellious? Are you quick to dismiss what your parents, your teachers, your church leaders say? Your basic attitude is one of rolling your eyes. Do you tend to distrust their motives? Do you disregard their instruction? That's what it means. If so, you will fit in really well with the culture. You'll be really cool. True. You act like that, if you kind of fold your arms around all authority, you will fit in great. At the same time, you'll be seriously sinning against God. And so, we have to say this, that there really is no such thing as a Christian rebel. You may need to get this right. You may need to say sorry to God. Somebody else you might. That's the first thing I ask you to think about. Are you rebellious? If not, it's serious. Take it serious. The second thing is, are you afraid to take authority? I remember being a very young pastor at 26. I was terrified. Anyone who tried to show me honor, I'd be like, no, don't worry, I'm just like you. There's no authority whatsoever. I was just terrified of it. Many years to get over my glitch. Are you afraid to take authority? That is, are you letting your kids rule the house? Are you letting your students run the classroom? Are you so afraid of messing up your authority that there's really no way out of here, right? We have to deal with authority one way or the other. You have to do it well, but at the same time, you can't just say like, oh, the only way to avoid it is to not pick it up. It's unavoidable. You'll be fighting against one of the things that you were made for, right? What has God made us to do? Way back in the book of Genesis, rule. Be kings and queens over his creation, to rule. And if we don't do that, the weeds take over. So I want to encourage you. You have any kind of authority. Most of us, don't be so afraid of taking a wrong step that you take. All right, so the first thing I ask you to think about is, are you rebellious? And the other thing is, are you really afraid of authority? The third thing then is, are you in a seriously difficult situation? Honoring authority is not always easy, right? And I'll tell you that in my own life, this has been really the thing that has caused me again and again to come up against real confusion and sometimes heartache. I would really like to honor my parents, but I'm not always sure how. So what I've had to do is I've had to seek counsel. What does it look like in my case? And I've had to pray, Lord, show me the way. And also I've had to know that I've had to trust that the Lord knows my heart. It may be that you need to seek counsel. You're in a situation that's hard. These things are not simple. Or it might be that you did need to hear something kind of simple today, which is this. Just to be reminded what the scripture says. Honor your father and your mother. Don't make excuses. Honor your father and your mother, even if they're really flawed. And if they're really flawed, here's how you deal with it. First, and then be grateful. Any good. If there's any place you can submit, let's sing. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise him, all creatures here below. Praise him above, ye heavens.